We'll call this regular meeting of the Fayette County Area Planning Commission to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone tonight, and please ask that you make sure your phones are silenced. We'll begin with roll call.
Darren Price. Here. Leota. Here. Brian Durham. Ed Harold. Gary Needler.
Present.
Kay Riker Payton.
Actually, it's Kathy now. Kathy Rose.
Oh, I'm sorry. Welcome, Kathy. Ryan Robb.
Here.
Bill Mackey.
Here.
Ryan Hensley. Bill McDaniel.
Present.
Jeff Westling.
Present.
And myself.
I believe we have enough for a quorum.
Indeed.
We'll move on to approval of the minutes of the February 10th meeting. You have them, I believe, in front of you.
People recall this was a shared meeting. We tried to hash out some of the things with not only the schedule for the rest of the year, which we're back on schedule for the meetings, but also our priorities with for the annual plan and the zoning board and the area planning commission. So we're back around in one great big circle with that. So it was a combined meeting, and at the last BZA meeting, the special BZA meeting at the end of May.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from February
It
10th.
was approved. Yep.
I'll second.
There's a motion made and seconded that we approve the minutes as presented. Are there any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is discussion on the comprehensive plan, where we plan on going.
Okay, well, everything is really, as far as some of the grant funds, such as with the, what we use for the IOCRA. Of course, those have been shifted elsewhere to help communities recover from the COVID-19. So, to really earn the funds right there, then of course, both the city and the county with the reduction in revenues. So, it's kind of a back burner thing, and hopefully not for very long. So with that, we'll do those. I think that the comprehensive plan with that is that'll give us then I think in the next part, which is focusing on the priorities for the rest of the year. And I think that really because of the reduced the time we actually have to work on it, I think everybody agreed that rules of procedure is probably necessary to fix those problems that have become paramount. And then I think that there's two significant projects then related to the zoning code, I think, which should be manageable for the rest of the year. If we do something with those, then we will pick up another one. But as before all of this hit, Carrie was in the process of, she started collecting and was going through electronic copies of some of the different rules of procedure for those, where I can ask Carrie where she's at with it. And I think one thing to really change with this is that I don't know how board members will feel, but I know some people might not want to really sit down with, have little committee meetings, or how anybody might want to handle that.
I told Carrie the other night that I for one don't have any problems meeting.
Yep.
And I'll meet just as often as we have to accomplish some of these goals, because it is paramount that we address at least these two items, because we've got to give expansion of business a fair chance. And right now, our zoning does not give them a fair chance.
Right.
If we want any hopes of any expansion or new development, we really have to address these issues, I believe. And so I for one, I'm more than willing to meet as often as we need to try to accomplish this before year's end. But Carrie, she stressed to me the same, that she was willing to put in as much as needed. So it's however everybody else wants. I mean, I'm just speaking for.
No, I think that's important. That's trying to get this thing cut down and simplified and the whole 9 yards. We just started the discussion in that, Jeff, when we were there, and I think it just, that's where we got to go. But all this happened, and we just kind of, that was it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no problems meeting or anything. So.
Okay.
Okay.
I noticed that Kay Reichert was on that committee, the one from the minutes of that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to fill in for a fresh spot, or is someone else?
No, I think we're okay with that.
Oh, absolutely.
I think if you want, I think basically Kay stepped in on that committee because she wanted to.
Oh, okay.
So, because Bill asked for volunteers, and I think if I remember right, that's been a long time ago since we discussed that. But I think she wanted to be part of that. So if that's where you want to be, I think you're more than welcome. But
Oh,
I
absolutely.
don't think any of the other board members will quorum over help.
No, I know I won't.
Knowing Kathy the way I know Kathy, I think she brings some value to some manuals. I mean, I think she's, as far as like the SOPs and things like that, I think she's a pretty good resource there. I think
Yeah.
she's pretty thorough, so.
So of course you know the procedures, but when you're making reference to with the things for the business, what sort of focus or things were you thinking in particular from the zoning guidelines?
Well, I haven't really looked at everything in detail, but it just, the 2 years that I've been here, or the year and a half that I've been here, we haven't had a lot of business come before us. But what business we have had come before us, it seems like it's just been so difficult for them to get things through, or they had to come before us to do everything. Jeff and I have talked about this, and Bill and I have talked about it a little bit, but it seems to me like, and I realize that this is something that's completely off the grid and different. Jeff's pointed that out to me, but it seems to me like if you've got a zoning that is for business, they ought to be able to build a business. There ought to be, we as a board ought to set up some criteria that, whether that's setbacks or whatever pertains to those businesses or those particular businesses, and if they meet that criteria, they ought to be able to go get a building permit. They shouldn't have to come get special exceptions. They shouldn't have to come and
Shouldn't get caught up in so much red tape.
exactly.
And I know there's rules, regulations, and
Sure.
things that I don't even know about. And you have
Yeah,
to follow all that stuff.
Because you're really jogging my memory, because it was if it makes sense with that special exception for not to be a special exception, get rid of the special exception.
Right.
And if there's a reason for it to run it through an extra filter, such as a special exception, we need to do that.
Or if they don't meet that criteria, then let them come before the BZA for a variance. But I don't I guess I don't understand, and it may be the lack of my knowledge of zoning and so on and so forth, but I don't understand the need for special exceptions and variances.
Right.
I don't understand why we have to put companies and people through both.
Yeah, well, you're killing it before you can get started, so.
Well, the basic theory behind the idea with something with a special exception is that certain businesses, there's little additional potential for nuisance to neighboring uses. That's the basic theory behind it. Now, the variances, the only ones we can do as an area plan commission, the only variances that we can grant are strictly the ones from the development standards, which is such
Right.
as the, we're going to be dealing with the BZA this evening. So some places, if they just have either a city or a county, they can grant use variances, which is kind of a backdoor rezone. We can't do that. We can do the other ones, which are which would be the setbacks, the parking standards. And for example, the parking standards is something we really should, when we're talking about business also, it makes it more expensive, is that are excessive. I recognize in a lot of cases our parking standards are excessive. Just like based on the size of what we have in front of us this evening with the BZA, well, if you're looking at the total square footage of, we required, I think, 73 parking spaces. But for the experience with that particular type of use is they want a variance down, I think it's something like 38. And when you're looking at uses comparable to that, such as the Dollar General that's over on where the Hooks was, is you go over there, and since it started to come up, I go over there even during peak periods, and the most I've ever seen as far as cars is about 20. So we do have things that are, because parking's expensive to put in.
Mm-hmm.
It's real expensive. And so the more parking you also have, the more you also cost them because of stormwater within the city of Connersville. So there's things like that also that tie in with it. I think there's a special exception in some of the other standards, the parking standards, and some of the other things along those lines that we have to deal with.
But I guess I question if we realize we have too high of parking standards, rather than doing special exceptions, why don't we just rewrite the zoning law,
That's
the
the
zoning
idea.
laws
Well,
to alleviate those
Oh.
issues? I mean,
that's absolutely, that's the idea. Because if you constantly find yourself, people requesting variances for something like that, and you're constantly having to grant variances for something, it shows you that something's out of whack and it's gotta be fixed.
I mean, we've got the situation with Clark's over there. This board, I wasn't part of it, but this board worked for months on a sign ordinance to upgrade our sign ordinance, and we already got company businesses that have to come before us, the BZA, for sign variance. And it's a corporate sign, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Well,
So why did we spend all that time working on a sign ordinance and it still doesn't work?
Okay, well, that one was a unique situation because of where it was located on the property is already developed. What we have in place will work quite a bit for some of the other parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
But say if it's a new development, it becomes a little more problematic at times when you're trying to redevelop a property with it. Because if it wasn't for the fact that it was gonna lose additional parking spaces or affect the actual flow of the traffic, they could have easily have moved it back. But it's a unique situation where it needed to be farther forward. And then also the additional height, because they wanted then the additional sign that was below it. So in order to do that, you had to also have a taller sign. So in a way, that's the way the variance is supposed to work. If there's a unique situation, that's where you grant the variance.
Well, I just know I've talked to developers outside the community as well as some of them here in the community, and it just seems like it's very difficult for them to do business in Fayette County for some reason. And I just think that it could start right here. We could, this board right here could make that simpler for those businesses. And, you know, Jeff made the comment to me, he said, wow, nobody does that. Nobody's done away with their special exceptions. No other county. And I said, exactly. I said, so let's be the leader in zoning changes.
Jeff, are the exceptions and stuff, I mean, all state oriented, I mean, or regulated, or is it,
No,
So
no.
local.
or is it just stuff that we've come up with over the years that's,
Okay.
It's something that would maybe be thought of, but would need special consideration, I guess would be the way to think about it. I will tell you, judging from your agendas, from what I've been involved in, from our agendas, I don't think the problem is we have too many things having to come before the board. What my concern would be, and what you guys are demonstrating, is that are we scaring businesses away from even trying?
right?
Right? It's not that we have too many things on
No.
the agenda and we have too many, because we don't.
Right.
But I think there is some concern, are they seeing our ordinance and saying, it's not even worth getting
Right.
through it?
Right.
And I think that is where the root of the evil is, and I'll be honest with you, I mean, it's gonna take some hard work, but the rules of procedure are a good start, but I mean, I really think, I would encourage you guys to start finding some areas of the ordinance that you think needs changed, and recommend to me or him or whoever or the committees, and I'll start getting either, you know, something that looks similar in similar situated communities, or I'll draft a different one. But I think if you started picking out some that really bother you, sign ordinance, or, you know, any of those things, I think really moving on to it, because sitting here listening to you guys talk, you're out in the community, you're hearing people complain, or we're seeing businesses get frustrated and not even try. Yeah, it's our job to make it, to protect citizens, to protect neighbors, right? There's a fine line, but also to allow people to get things going.
Right.
And this goes back to the model, the code that it was used. There's some model references that go back to the Depression era, which aren't even appropriate anymore. But this was a boilerplate ordinance, because it was the same one for a very long time as the same one they had in Franklin County. Matter of fact, much of Lake County had the same ordinance. Those other than Gary, much of Lake County had the same ordinance. So this ordinance by this one particular person was all over the state, and it's the exact same
I
ordinance.
remember
Yeah.
that now, Bill.
And to me, it's as a planner who also worked as a consultant, it's the sort of product that really makes consultants as a whole look bad,
Mhm.
because you're not doing something, because when a consultant comes in, a consultant should be trying to do something that's very unique for your community, whether it's their comprehensive plan, whether it's your zoning, whether it's your subdivision. It's you should take into consideration some of the unique situations. They should look at I've seen some ordinances that have gone into some communities that are pushing the newest and the latest things that can be very sophisticated to enforce. Well, these things that can be sophisticated to enforce is, unless you're gonna have a staff, and then also staff that's basically people who are trained in it, it's a waste of money. So part of it is also our procedures, not only the rules of procedure, but the procedures in the zoning code itself. Those need to be simplified. And they should be designed and written so that the average citizen can look at it, read it, and really understand it with a minimum number of questions.
Amen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I should be able to understand it.
You and me both.
Okay, so I guess one place with us starting with that also is then going through I think one thing also is, as I've mentioned before, is, going through the list of those redundant uses for the different business districts. Simplifying those lists, going through and looking at the special exceptions, and anything else related to it. We're looking at the parking standards, those type of things. So it's like, and perhaps it could be that, okay, we're gonna go through, okay, why would this particular business use of all things need a special exception? It might be one if it's dealing with one that might still need it, might be one that's dealing with a larger amount of hazardous materials, so there's an extra layer of review. But all of them probably don't.
Okay, any other discussion, questions? Do you have a problem with maybe Ed and Carrie and I just trying to hit the ground running with this and get everybody invited to different discussions and
Get
we'll
it
try to
back.
set something up and
Get it back on the roll here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be the best way is to then get this going between you, Ed, Carrie, and me, then we can discuss then how we're really gonna set this up for this
Yeah.
next period. Yeah. So then that way we can come back and then in July and say, this is what we're gonna do, this is what we need people to work on.
I mean, is there any laws against us having some special meetings if necessary to get this done before the end of the year so we
Well,
can,
the only thing we really need to do if we start having special meetings,
is advertised?
one's your Bob.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So they just need to be aware that, yes, we're having this meeting, it's a committee for.
I guess as a board, do we have a problem with having some special
I think the sooner
meetings?
all this stuff is fixed, the better.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, absolutely.
is that all right? All right.
Do we need to make a motion to that effect?
I think general
Yeah.
agreement that we're okay with, if we need some special meetings, then we'll advertise. And I assume that they're no different, Jeff, than our commissioners' meetings. 48 hours notice is all we have to give for a special meeting.
Yes,
As long as it
with the
doesn't
APC.
involve a public hearing.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Which is another thing you might entertain trying to have is when we pick out a specific topic, maybe you have some public commentary. Because I mean, to change some of it, we're going to have public hearings actually.
Yeah.
But before you get to that point, maybe it would be nice to invite.
Have some public input.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is,
Okay. All right.
But I guess maybe what we can do is then between you, Carrie, Ed, or anybody else is that, you know, go through the zoning code. If there's anything that just really sticks out at you. It's just like all the things when Brian started going through the accessory uses, a lot of things really just jumped out at him that were problems or inconsistent language. But I guess maybe is one thing to look at is what sort of things in the zoning code are there that are going to get in the way of, say, business, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's other type of business, office business, agricultural business, anything like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
Yep.
Well, any other questions or comments for the projects, APC projects for the year? Seeing none, we'll move on to director's report for January, February, March, April, and May.
Yeah, so what I did is so in the past one had just been, say, one month had been left out, but this time I wanted everybody to see what was happening, even though I gave everybody all the information for January. I wanted everybody to see what was really happening with just over the, each month, it's just some of the variations. And interestingly, is that's, we have, okay, let's see. So if you actually look, I mean, one thing we haven't had is we haven't had as many big projects, because we started off the year with a couple of big projects, which is why we started off with this multi-million dollars worth of projects, for investment. But if you look right here, this year through last year, well, there's only been 10 fewer permits. Same number of residential permits, so those things are still happening even with what's happening with the, with coronavirus. So a little bit behind as far as the permits go. Okay, that just gives you an idea what the, oh, we gotta delete something from there, that last part on the second page. Oh, no, actually, that's estimated construction cost. So that gives you an idea what the, because we had quite a bit more last year, this year, because right now there's only been about $1.4 million of dollars of construction costs. We probably only have about, because of the big, not having the big projects, maybe only about half of what we generated last year as far as fees. Because it's been a lot of small projects. And everything's been pretty consistent as far as, there hasn't been a huge variation as far as the number of total inspections, but they have been starting to pick up. And then what I just included on the back is the meeting schedule for the rest of the year. Any questions regarding the report for me?
I make a motion to accept the director's report.
Second.
This motion made and seconded that we accept the director's report as presented. Any questions? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, the same. Motion carries. All right. Is there anything else that needs to come before the APC tonight? No.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion made and seconded for adjournment. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
I now declare the June 25th, 2020 Board of Zoning meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Will and Jeff, either of you like a mask?
I have one.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Okay,
And
next,
if anybody else wants a mask, I have some over there. There's hand sanitizer.
okay. Next on the agenda is a roll call.
Carrie Simpkins. Bill Crawford.
Here.
Jeff Fisher.
Here.
Ryan Durham is absent. Leota's here. Bill McDaniel.
Present.
Mr. Jeff.
Here.
And myself.
Okay, thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the June the 9th, 2020 meeting.
I make a motion to approve those.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion made, properly seconded to approve the minutes from June 9th. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next on the agenda is the public hearing, petition number 15024, and the petitioner is Shane Kaufman.
And I'll need to recuse myself from the meeting.
Okay?
Okay, and so
So we don't have a quorum for this,
we
right?
do not have a quorum for this. There's no way that we can get because to approve, we would need 3 votes, one way or the other, to make a decision. We fail to have a quorum for the actual hearing.
So we're just going to
It would have to
Postpone
be continued. yes.
continue? Okay.
Yes.
Is that the right word?
Because we don't even have enough members present here right now with Jeff recusing himself to even make a motion to recuse.
Okay,
I mean, to continue,
okay.
so.
So that's,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
did you say that you're expecting one of the other members?
Well, we can give it a little bit more time, but it's unlikely. We had one member that, she was gonna try to be here, but she didn't know she'd be able to make it.
Okay.
She said it was a possibility, but probably not. I have no idea what happened with Mr. Durham, because it's out of character for him not to give us a heads up. He's, he can be very conscientious, so something must have come up that's completely unexpected.
Okay. All right. Next on the agenda is the director's report.
But what we'll have to do is we'll have to pick up where we started at the July.
23rd.
Thursday, July 23rd, which for Mr. Kaufman anyway, there was gonna still be a public hearing then for the rezoning the residential, which I received, by the way, the other day. I just need to finish the paperwork.
For Mr. D,
Quick
yes.
question,
Yeah,
just for public record stuff, can we, because the partnership with the LLC is actually legally compliant, and I didn't know if we can, like, most of the time it's just addressed by the partnership,
oh, yeah, your function is the LLC, you're a party to it, all the contingencies that go with it. Yeah, you can actually be the petitioner. And,
Well, what I'm saying is, there was the article just reads like it's me myself. There was an article in the News Examiner, very lengthy, and it just uses my name. It doesn't use the actual applicant, Concord Partnership LLC.
well, that's, yeah.
I just wonder for public record if we can.
Okay, would you then just clearly state the actual name?
Yeah, it's Connersville Partners, or it's Connersville Group Partners. Connersville Group LLC. So
Okay, all right. And so that would be also then Jeff, then with can they then, since it's the rezoning, but it's still in Mr. Heaves' ownership?
It was filed under Connersville Group LLC, but Shane is a member of that, so he signed it,
Yeah.
but everything was addressed as Shane Kaufman.
Right.
So all the public documents have Connersville Group on them that were submitted, but he's the signer, so, you know, somebody's just saw his
Somebody
name
has to sign
and
it, yeah.
went forward. But I think for the case moving forward, if we could use Connersville Group LLC,
Sure.
that would be.
They're essentially the applicant versus the property owner at this point, right?
Well, they have, the property owner is, Mr. Heeb,
Right.
currently in Connersville Group LLC has a, option to purchase the property.
Contingency, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so then, that being the case, then as far as then dealing with the zoning map amendment, Connersville Partners LLC, right, or group?
Connersville
Group,
Group.
sorry.
yeah.
Okay, all right. Partners, that the first one, I'm having trouble getting it out of my head.
Be partners.
But Connersville Group LLC. But they can still then run through and then function as the petitioner for the zoning map amendment, correct?
Yeah, they're the applicant.
They're the applicant for it. Yep.
Well, for the rezone, I think it was filed under the current owner, Mr. Heeb,
Okay.
because,
He filed it individually, he was the owner and the
Correct.
applicant. But he's wanting to change that to where the applicant's. the
no, that
corporation.
will still flow through, we'll be agent, we had him sign the letter that we could be agent, but it's flowing under his name for the rezone, since he still owns that.
Just anything pertaining to us should be Connersville Group LLC. Anything pertaining to our side.
Okay.
Shouldn't use my name properly, just, you know,
Fair.
personally, just.
Fair.
It's too late though.
Okay. All right. That all good? All right, director's report for January, February, March, April, and May. Jeff, you can come back in.
Director's report?
Yeah.
Yes,
I have
sir.
a question.
Okay.
The discussion on this zoning over in East Connersville, that's gonna be put off until July?
Exactly, because, and the reason why is we could not move forward with the public hearing because we no longer had a quorum for the public hearing. So we can't even move forward with having the presentations.
Okay, and at that time, whoever's proposing all that is gonna have
Exactly,
a
yes.
drawing as of what this
Mhm.
place is gonna look like and everything?
Mhm. And would you?
I own the building right next to it.
You
Yeah.
probably could
Uh,
give,
And I've
to
got
the
some questions.
East or
To the
west?
east.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I've got some, because I'm sort of landlocked right now anyway, and I don't wanna get landlocked any further than I am.
right. Well, and you'll have an opportunity, Bill, do you have access to that design where he
Yeah,
can get it?
yeah, I
that's
have-
all-
yeah,
that's
that was all
public
submitted.
record.
So you could get
But
him a copy of
if,
that, if you go down
I
to
don't
his
know if
office.
you all would be
Yeah.
actually willing to speak with the gentleman right now to maybe clear up many
Mhm.
issues and
Do
potential
you
issues.
want it
you
as
may
part
have.
of this meeting, or?
Actually, I think you'd need to do that privately.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
so if you can meet him privately, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
We could go,
Well,
I guess we don't have to be here anymore.
Well,
No, you
let's
do
wait
not.
Till they close it,
Oh,
in case
okay.
the other member comes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I tried to find out, I think she's 100 miles away is what she said. so-
Oh.
I think she's getting
We're not
ready
gonna
to
wait
do-
that long.
Tell her to hurry up.
Yeah, right. I said, we're still waiting.
Okie dokie, here we go with the director's report.
Pretty good land records, if you
I make a motion to accept the director's report.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion made to accept the director's report as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Any other questions or comments?
Make a motion with adjourn.
I'll second it.
And a motion made and properly seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Done.